We have all been there, at least once. That feeling of helplessness you get after the loss of someone, whether that be through their passing or simply through the end of a relationship. It can be easy for some people to get through, and for others, it can feel like the end of the world. We have all experienced grief at some point, and when you're going through all those emotions, it can be easy to let your emotions take the wheel and let your grief drive your actions. Some of us turn to friends, others turn to substances. Personally, I turn to music. Music has always been in my life, and I've used it to get through a lot of different emotions. When I first discovered this album, I was going through a pretty bad breakup. I truly felt like I was never going to feel love again. And listening to this album, listening through the songs, and seeing what this person was going through and feeling what they were feeling, it helped me view grief through a different eye. This album helped me realize that grief isn't something you just get over, it's something you learn to live with. I view this album as a man who went through a breakup and started to utilize drugs as a way to cope until he hit his own personal rock bottom. Here, he rekindled his relationship with God and finally began to learn to live with his own grief. Without further ado, this is The Hearse by Maeson. The album begins with the lines, "Hung high and dry, where no one can see. If there's no one to blame, blame it on me." High and dry was a term that was originally used to refer to ships that were beached, the dry part referring to the fact that they had probably been outside of the water for a long time and were most likely going to remain there. Although he says, "If there's no one to blame, blame it on me. If there's nothing but pain, put it on me," it doesn't seem like a person who is accepting their part of the blame. It seems more like a person who is tired of all the arguing and doesn't really care what the other person thinks anymore. And it's just basically going, yeah, yeah, whatever, I'm the bad guy. I'm done, right? The following lines are, "You are the cold, inescapable proof. You're the evil, the way, and the life, and the truth. Your revival beginning, and your genocide, and I watch in wonder." With this song, he's essentially saying, "You're the reason we had all the problems. I tried, but I don't care anymore. Go ahead. Put the blame on me. Put the pain on me. I'm done." Hallucinogenics is the song that I first came across when I discovered this album, and it is probably one of my favorites. It is essentially a song of a man crying for help as he throws himself into these vices of drugs and alcohol, all to forget this person, as he says, "I don't remember your face, or your hair, or your name, or your smile." But then he proceeds to say, "Go find yourself a man who's strong and tall and Christian." He hasn't forgotten this person. He still has that anger inside of him, but he's forcing himself to forget her through these vices, throwing himself into drugs and slowly killing himself just to forget this person. The Hearse is probably my second favorite song in the album, and it comes right after Hallucinogenics. After this man has spiraled to the bottom of this well of grief, he is now laying there at his own personal rock bottom, screaming out, "What was it like to feel in love?" At first, this question feels resentful as he starts the song with the lyric, "I am the man we both couldn't stand." The first time this question is asked, it feels like he's making fun of her for falling in love with the man who she ended up hating. But as the song continues, it turns into him pleading for this person to sink down to where he is. It is his last attempt of getting this person to accept him for the person he truly is, this broken man. The song ends with the same question, "What was it like to feel in love?" And by this point, it feels more like a cry for affection from a man who has experienced such loss that the feeling of love truly feels alien to him, and he's genuinely asking, "What was it like?" This song portrays Matt Maeson at his absolute rock bottom. He has this person in his life called Cliffy, and it seems like they're both in this drug abusing state currently. And even though Matt can see how bad Cliffy has gotten, he can't bring himself to say anything or do anything because he needs this person in his life right now to go through this feeling with him. This is when the chorus of the song begins and starts saying, "Are you still hurting? And where did you come by all of those burdens?" Now, I've never been a really spiritual person. For a while, I truly believed I was atheist, even though I grew up in a Catholic family that made me go through my baptism and my first communion. But something about these lyrics, something about this song, when I first heard it, I broke down into tears. Seeing this person in this absolute rock bottom, not only hurting himself, but hurting his friend or whoever this Cliffy person is by not speaking out or trying to stop them. And hearing the chorus come in from this loving place, asking, "Where did you come by? All of these burdens. Are you still hurting?" It really broke me when I first heard it. It felt like a parent comforting his child after he fell off a bike. Something so genuine about it. After I first heard this song, my view on religion became a lot more open. Since then, I've been trying to read more. I've been trying to pray, but it's still weird for me to do. But it's something I definitely have been trying to add to my life. I don't really know why, but something about the song really just struck me to my core. Unconditional is him beginning to finally accept the end of this relationship and returning back home, where he finds his family and he begins to really appreciate the love that they've always given to him, that has always truly been unconditional. The song says, "Maybe love was always here. Maybe love needs the fear. Maybe love is a broken thing. Maybe love needs nothing." The song is from a man who fell in love so deeply with someone that when it ended, he truly felt like he was never going to fall in love again. And then after going through this terrible spiral of drugs and alcohol, he finally begins to accept it and returns home, where he is met with what love truly is. He ends the song by admitting how much this person who he's been trying to forget truly means to him, but accepting that it is time to let go. Mr. Rattlebone is the final song in the album, and Matt Maeson has stated that this song was written about his addiction with cocaine, which becomes really apparent when you start to look at the lyrics. That's right, fuck all the drama. I'll be your muse. Now take what I offer. Straight up the nose, down the throat. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. The lyrics seem like a conversation between him and his addiction, him knowing how bad it is for him, but unable to say no to the feeling of happiness and calmness that his addiction is promising. His addiction constantly repeating, "Call me Mr. Rattlebone, Holy Ghost who haunts your home. They don't know you like I know." The song ends with, "I am the driver, I am the shadow, and I am the hearse." This repeats several times before we're left with silence at the end of the album. This is him accepting that he is the reason for his pain and he is the person who's in control now. This album is a beautiful depiction of a man who fell in love so deeply that when it was over, he spiraled. He threw himself into drugs and alcohol and began to lose himself in this depression. It shows us his lowest point and shows us how he begins to find this unconditional love he was searching for in God and in his family. It then shows us the same still broken man, still addicted to cocaine, but now finally beginning to take charge of his life and beginning to understand that grief isn't something you just get over, it's something you learn to live with. I've always connected very deeply with music. Something about knowing that other people are going through the same feelings that I'm going through just makes me feel more comfortable with feeling them. This album helped me get through quite a bit and made me change my perspective on what grief is and made me realize that it's not about forgetting what happened, it's more about learning to accept the fact that it's over and appreciating the fact that it happened to begin with, as he still feels pretty big feelings for this person, but he accepts that it's time to move on. I have a few other albums that I want to talk about. I also have a couple books that I want to talk about. But if there's anything specifically that you want me to talk about and deep dive, go ahead and leave it in the comment section. Otherwise, this is the end. And I hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you around.